Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being here. Yeah, of
Thanks for
course.
having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, just jumping into things, how are you feeling after wrapping the Bishop Briggs tour and being back?
I'm so happy. I feel like that tour was such a great experience and like I truly had such an incredible time. It was my third tour I've done with my band and like my touring team, so we're super locked in and it was great to be able to play music from the new album like before it kind of came out. So it was just a really good experience and I love Bishop. She was so sweet. Her team was great and I had a great time.
Great. And so, going into your music directly too. So, 911, that was essentially a defining moment in your career. And what did that breakthrough with that song mean to you specifically?
Honestly, I'm really grateful, and I've even said this before. I'm very grateful that 911 was my blow up, like breakout song, because I know so many people who really don't connect with or like their biggest song. And I think that's like a super common thing in the industry. But I actually love 911, and I wrote 911 at a time where I was in a really, really abusive, for lack of like, honestly, it's just what it was, a really abusive relationship. And like, that song has connected with so many people who have been going through similar things. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. Like, even now, I'll go on tour and somebody will come up to me and tell me, like, oh my God, I found 911. And when I found you, I was in this horrible relationship. And like, your music really helped me through that specific time. And, that's the stuff that I was going through when I made that song. So I'm really happy 911 was the breakthrough. I love playing it live. It's fun to sing. I think it is a good song. Like, I definitely have songs that I think are not as great as 911. So I'm happy.
Great. Okay. So, kind of going into your current creative journey, then speaking to Pretty Evil specifically. So, your new album, Pretty Evil, feels deeply personal. It feels very raw. Could you share the inspiration and just the general emotional journey you went through behind this project?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely can. This project has been like 4 years in the making, really 1 year in the making, but truly four because my debut album came out in 2021. And in that time until now, like just so much has happened in my life. You go from being a 21-year-old to a 25-year-old, and like so much growth and literal brain development happens in those years. And honestly, the real true start of Pretty Evil was at sort of the beginning of 2024. But I had been scrapping things and thinking, like, oh, I'm going to make an album in 2023 and in 2022 and starting projects. And then just being like, this is not it. Like, this is not the sound I want. I don't feel inspired. So Pretty Evil was really the start of me finally feeling like I found my like sonic voice again and my artistic touch again. And that's why I feel like once it started, it kind of just snowballed and it happened really fast and we made it super fast. But because I think that happened because there was such a long time beforehand where I was just creating and throwing things at a wall and not loving anything. And so it like really set me up for the making of Pretty Evil.
Okay, fair enough. So, one track in particular, I mean, what can you talk to me specifically about creating Dead to Me? Like, why do you think this track in particular resonated so deeply with listeners?
Honestly, I think Dead to Me is resonating well because it's kind of fun. Like, it's fun to listen to, but I think so many people can relate to the feeling of like, of just fuck you. It's not really deeper than that. It's a very
Sure.
straight on song. It's like, you cheated on me, you betrayed me, you're dead to me. Like you said, you die for me, so literally do it. I hate you and you suck. And I think that super blunt messaging of Dead to Me is why people like it, because usually I'm not so blunt in my songs. Usually I kind of take a more like, make of it what you will route, but that is not the case for Dead to Me.
Okay, okay. So jumping around a little bit because I've just been really familiarizing myself with your catalog with Valentine. Okay. What inspired that track specifically, and why do you think it connected particularly well during Madison Beer's tour?
So it's funny because Valentine and Dead to Me are totally about the same exact situation, just sort of written from two really different feelings. Because, when some big betrayal happens to you, go through like all the stages of grief. And
Sure.
Valentine is definitely my ode to like the other woman. It really is like me penning almost like a love letter to her and being really brutally honest of like, I'm obsessed with you. The guy I thought was my boyfriend wanted you while he wanted me. And that can give you like that sort of mental obsession with someone. Like, what does she have that I don't? Why did he pick her over me? Why did he hurt me with this specific person? And I think that connected well on Madison tour because Madison's fans are mostly teenagers. They're teenage girls and they go through things like this with their like early loves in their life too. So I think just like a very sort of wholesome song that is not really like, I'm not mad. It wasn't the other girl's fault. She didn't know, but you know, it leaves a lasting mark in someone's brain. And I think that concept is what connected well on the Madison tour.
Right. No, I totally understand. And the title Pretty Evil, moving back to Pretty Evil as the album itself, it kind of suggests, if taken literally, beauty mixed with darkness, obviously. How does this concept reflect your personal experiences or artistic vision, kind of for you as an artist, that notion of beauty mixed with darkness, that juxtaposition?
I think that whole juxtaposition has really been the definer of me as an artist throughout my whole career. Throughout my career, like I've been called like the creepy cute or like the, the bubblegum but like dark girl. And I feel like that like that was a horrible example. But people have always sort of used like a two polarizing adjectives, one being dark and scary and one being like really cute and bubbly to describe me. And I would also describe my music and my overall like sound and just like visuals that way, because that is kind of what I've always grown up loving. That's really what's true to me. Like I really am such a girly girl. I'm so into like everything fashion and beauty and makeup and like everything girly that you can imagine. The wall behind me is pink,
Sure.
but at the same time, I have always loved like so many horror influences, so many like, I don't know, things that kind of keep me in both worlds. And I feel like Pretty Evil is named that because I wanted to do something like sort of polarizing, like the two halves of a whole. Because even what the album is about, like the relationship of it all, that is a polarizing thing itself too. It's like it's either amazing and it's the best thing in the world and you're in love, or it's like wow, we're doing crazy shit to each other. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I'm like, wow, we're doing crazy shit to each other and like everything is horrible. And I feel like that's a common thing in like very toxic relationships. So I wanted everything to sort of feel like the overall aesthetic of Ellise as an artist, but while also feeling like a little bit more mature and elevated and like just like more grown up, you know?
Of course. Okay, so that's a really good segue because you're describing the nuances of Elise effectively. So you've previously mentioned reclaiming your creative voice amidst industry pressures. Could you elaborate on the specific pressures you faced and how you overcame those pressures?
For sure. I When I dropped my debut album, I was like signed to a label. I had a very a very well-known management company behind me, and I really didn't feel like I had anyone in my corner. No, not going to name names or anything, but it
Mhm.
just felt like I was this young girl, and this is like tale as old as time in the music industry. I'm not, the one person who's experienced this, and almost all of my friends have experienced something similar where you're young, you're naive, you don't really know anything, and then all of a sudden you have a song doing really well and people are like ready to pounce on that. They're
Mhm.
waiting in the wings to get in there and get their hands in there. And some people get lucky and it's good people that get their hands in there and you build this amazing team, but a lot of people don't get that lucky, and next thing you know you're like behind bars with your record label and everything is kind of out of your hands. And so that's pretty much what happened to me. And things got really, really overwhelming really fast. I felt like I was on this huge learning curve that I just like couldn't keep up with. And I didn't feel like anybody was really explaining anything correctly to me. And I just felt very in the dark a lot of the time. And that ended up really affecting my mental health and affecting me creatively. I think that's a big part of the reason that I was so uninspired to create for so long, was because I was just like, what's the point of any of this? Like the curtain really got pulled. I really saw like what it is to be on the business side of the music industry. And it's not the nicest place. So that was a big realization for me.
Of course, no, it is not. I mean, personally, I've heard so many stories over the years that just have really resonated with me about the trials, tribulations that people have gone through, because everybody who is simply a fan of the music they're consuming, they never see, the very destructive mechanisms behind the scenes in various creative industries.
Yeah, it's
So,
very true.
yeah,
Like
so I,
who knows what we don't know about, other industries that we're fans of. Like I know nothing really about the movie industry. I'm sure there's so much crazy nuance and corruptedness in that industry too that we just, or at least I just have no clue about. So I guess it's similar with music.
No, I totally agree. And that's also an interesting point that you make because was there ever a time because, you're navigating the ups and downs. So with Pretty Evil, you're navigating the ups and downs. Was there ever a time where you doubted your direction that you were taking on that album? And if so, how did you overcome it? Like what was that moment that you decided to really double down?
Honestly, once I started making the songs that I knew were for this album, Pretty Evil,
Mhm.
I didn't really doubt the direction. It was like some sort of magic happened. Like, I feel like every creative can kind of relate to this. There are times where you're like, everything I'm making is great. I'm on a roll. Like, everything is just kind of spewing out of me right now, and I really like it all. And then there's like lulls where you're like, I don't love what I'm making. I'm not really like inspired. Like, you can just tell when you're not performing at your best. And I feel like you can't really control when those eras of,
You tell me it.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking to authenticity, because I think a lot of people are, everyone has this general idea of I'm the most authentic in any creative industry. They want 100% authenticity, but there's times where you say to yourself, how do I balance that amidst commercial expectations? Just the general expectation that you have commercially. How do you do that? How do you balance the authenticity in your work and the commercial expectations you may have as you're working through a project?
Honestly, I try to be just so completely true to myself at this point. I think there's definitely an element of like you want to make stuff that you think will get views and do well and, like not flop on social media. But as far as visuals like cover art and music videos and visualizers and things like that, I really just try to do what I like. Like I try to just not care at all what anyone else is doing or what anyone will think. That was something I used to struggle with a lot is like, are other people that I know in real life gonna think this is cool? Like, are
Sure.
people gonna see this and think it's cool, or are they gonna make fun of me and think it's cringe? I literally don't give a fuck about cringe anymore. Like, I just wanna make stuff that I think looks good and fits me and like fits the song, and visuals are really important to me. Like I love the visual aspect of being an artist so much, so I just do what I think is fun and cool and try not to care too much about like outside factors in that sense, which hasn't always gone the best for me with like team members or labels and stuff like that, but I'm very stubborn and hard-headed. Like I will make a case for creative stuff more than I'll fight for anything else.
Okay, so let's touch back on your artistic identity then, because you mentioned earlier, your visual and sonic brand having that juxtaposition. Some people have said, similar to the bubblegum and dark combo, they've said, oh, excuse me, pink, heart shaped, and haunted. So I'm kind of yeah, so just a lot of different things that I found in relation to that. But what are some of the specific influences, maybe if we can go into those movies, maybe music you grew up with? What are your artistic influences essentially?
Growing up, I would say my biggest musical influences, like I remember finding Nirvana when I was like 12 and just being like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this. Like I love this band." And kind of like the these like grunge rock. I really liked like Red Hot Chili Peppers growing up and those like sort of bands, Deftones, I was really into and I'm still into, but just early influences. And then when the sort of like Tumblr girl era came around, I was prime age for that. I was like 13, 14 at the time. And, like Melanie Martinez came out and Marina and the Diamonds came out and The Neighborhood and Lord and Arctic Monkeys were maybe a little bit prior, but that was kind of when I found all that music. And I was just so obsessed with this scene of like this darker pop. Like I was like, it feels like pop music, but it's so much cooler. And I got really obsessed with that as a young teenager. But as far as like other music or other influences outside of music, I also just grew up loving horror as a genre. I was really into like Stephen King books, James Patterson books. I loved like every Tim Burton movie. And so I think a lot of that also influenced my musical sound a lot. I attribute a lot of my songwriting to reading, to growing up being like a really big reader. And mostly what I read was like mystery and thriller and things like that. So definitely, I think it all goes hand in hand in my brain somewhere.
Speaking to that, do you have a specific Tim Burton film or a specific Stephen King book that is your favorite? Because I would just like to hear more about that. That's super interesting to me.
I think, like, just for classic vibes, Stephen King, maybe Cujo, just because. Like such a like I read that. That was maybe the first Stephen King book I ever read, and I was just like, hell yeah,
Of
like
course.
this is my guy. Tim Burton. Oh my god, what's my favorite Tim Burton movie? I'm gonna look like a fake fan because I suck at thinking of things on the spot and
That's
say one
okay.
that's like not even my favorite. I love Sweeney Todd. I love anything with Helena Bonham Carter in it. Like
Yeah.
she's my diva and my icon. So yeah, I don't know. I love a lot of Tim Burton movies.
No, of course. No, I put on the spot, I would have the exact same reaction.
And it
So
makes you look so fake, you know, because you're like, I swear I know other things, but it's just hard.
it's okay. Everybody knows the truth. I mean, from an artistic perspective, I think people understand like the vibe you're actually putting out via your music. And so there's nothing more authentic than that, like what you actually create. So speaking to that some more, you've shifted to songs and kind of going back into the catalog a little bit, what we were discussing earlier. You've shifted from songs, as you mentioned, about heartbreak to embracing what I would describe as a more kind of empowered, even villainous persona. Could you just talk about this evolution, just reflecting on your growth? Because maybe that speaks to your growth as an artist, but it also could speak to your growth as a person and kind of who you've become over the years. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think if anything, it's more about the personal life growth and that sort of like you're right, like kind of merges with the artist growth and makes the songs have more of that attitude. And I definitely was intentional with that. Like I wanted to have a sort of more like villainous, more just like I'm not going to be the one that is getting stepped on because
Sure.
that's kind of how I felt in my life with everything we were talking about with like the music industry and what I was going through there at that time. Sorry, by the way, I have like a skylight and it makes this weird like beam of light. I'm trying to like not be in it.
Maybe it's cool. Maybe it adds to the aesthetic. Like there's like an angelic aesthetic, which is
Aura
kind of cool.
just around
Exactly.
me.
Yeah, just roll with it.
I'm like, oh my god, that's so crazy. This is never there. Like, what is that? But yeah, I think just getting away from people who really were just not serving my life at all and were making me so depressed and also my own behaviors that were making me feel that way and kind of just forcing myself to grow up and be like, dude, you're in this. Like this industry is a dog eat dog world. Like
Mhm.
nobody at the end of the day, no one's gonna have your back if you don't have your own back. And I was getting to such a point of self-hatred and just hating my life that I didn't have my own back. I wasn't making a case for myself in any situation. I was kind of just letting things happen to me, you
Sure.
know? So I think taking back even more so than finding new people to put in my life that were healthier people and people that I love, more so than that, it was also just like loving myself and learning to kind of overcome these really self-destructive behaviors that I had had as my coping mechanisms like all through my life. And I still have some of them. I'm not like some healed amazing like, you know, person now, but I
Of course.
definitely think a big part of the reason that the album feels that way is because I made that change like for myself as a human.
That's sensible. So speaking to that vulnerability, because that's really what you're articulating is that emotional vulnerability. Do you find, in the course of these intense emotions, that songwriting is therapeutic for you? Just that creative process in general?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's like two ways that I write songs. And one of them is the way that I wrote Valentine, where when I wrote Valentine, it was very fresh. Like I had truly just found out about that whole situation, about the betrayal and everything. And I wrote that like fresh off the heels of that while it's still in
Mhm.
my mind. And I think songs like Valentine, you can kind of only write in the heat of the moment like that. But then there's other times where I actually usually like to let things in my life sit. I like to process them and I like to be over them before I write about them because by the time I'm writing about them, it kind of just feels like, okay, this is just something that I've already processed. And now I'm sort of telling the story of it as if it's in the past tense for me. Whereas when I write things really fresh like Valentine, it can be therapeutic, but it also can sometimes be almost like more. I don't want to say triggering, that's not the right word, but
Sure.
almost like it just re brings up the feelings, it resurfaces them, and it makes me think about them more. So I don't know. I don't know if therapeutic is the right word unless I'm waiting until everything, I'm already over everything and I'm kind of doing it as like an ode to the past.
Okay, that's interesting. Let me touch on that some more. So, how do you manage that vulnerability that comes with performing, as you said, these deeply personal songs that bring up these emotions and these feelings? How do you manage that live, the vulnerability as you're performing them live?
Especially a song like Valentine. I play Valentine acoustic, and a lot of the nights, if the stage permits it, I sit on the edge of the stage and just sing it, and my guitarist just plays, and there's no drums or anything. So, for a song like Valentine, I like to really just put myself there. I think about it. I'm like, wow, I'm over it now. It doesn't make me sad anymore. But in the moment when you're on stage, like you kind of channel that sadness that you felt at the time. And I feel like that really can reflect through. Like, there's been nights that I've played Valentine that I've almost started crying, especially if the crowd is giving a reaction back. Like, if everybody puts their phone lights up, or if you catch a glimpse of someone and they're like it does get really emotional, and it kind of brings a new life to it too. Like, you get to bounce your emotions off of everyone in the crowd and they bounce theirs back onto you. So it's kind of a different feel every night.
Right. So, what do you hope that listeners who are experiencing this either live or streaming, what have you, what do you hope that they take away from these emotional tracks? Like, what experience do you wish for them to have?
The experience I always wish for anyone that finds my music to have is the thing that I find the most special about music, which is that sort of attachment that you'll get to a song because it sticks with you for one specific memory. When you
Right.
find that one song and you're like, this is the song I listened to in my December era when I was going through my breakup, and this was like the song that helped me through it. Or this is the song I found that one night that I was, doing this, and that really sticks with you. And then every time you hear that song, you kind of think back, and it holds like a little shelf in your arsenal of songs that you love for a specific reason. So whenever people find my music and they're like, this was my anthem for like this specific emotional thing I went through, that always is what makes me the happiest.
Yeah, this I love because this is one thing that I wish actually more artists realize that their music are effectively the soundtracks of various people's lives. Like the music that you and I grew up with, we can remember exactly where we were when we listened to this song for the first time, what have you, be it at the mall or whatever circumstance. But basically, I wish more artists understood how powerful that is because you're literally shaping someone's basically, let's say, even their teenage, adolescent, young adult years all the way through each era in your artistry. So I just think that's really interesting that you mentioned that.
It's really cool. I love the way you put it, soundtrack to someone's life. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And everyone is going to find it at different times for different reasons and associate it with a different, memory and have their own take on it. And that's like one of the coolest things about music. There's so much room for people to make what they want of it and fit it into their life however it works.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's run it back a little bit. Pretty Evil. What was your most memorable or surprising moment while recording Pretty Evil, if there was one in particular?
Honestly, like I've so many good moments from making it, from recording it, like specifically singing vocals. I think Leech was by far the most fun one to record, so it sticks out in my brain the most. I love just like a belt, like a big belty anthem chorus. So Leech was super fun to record, and like just getting the vocals perfectly distorted and adding all the layers. It was really fun. And there's also a lot of backgrounds in Leech that you can't hear super well, but they are just like my favorite harmonies and favorite backgrounds. Cherry on Top was also similar. I loved recording Cherry on Top. And Cherry on Top also has weird, like dissonant harmonies that were inspired by like Deftones type of harmonies and are different than like the typical ones I usually do. So I would say Cherry on Top and Leech, very fun to sing and record. Very fun to play live also.
Very cool. Okay, so speaking to playing live and speaking to your tour, Bishop Briggs and Madison Beer, did any particular moment stand out to you?
So many. Oh my God. Touring is like my favorite thing in the world, but also simultaneously so exhausting. But you're like
Sure.
having so much fun and adrenaline that you don't even realize how exhausted you are until you get home. And then you're like, holy shit. But I'd say on Madison tour, well, that tour was honestly just full of firsts for me. It was only my second tour and it was huge venues, like for any compared to anything I had ever played. It's massive venues. I got to meet so many cool fans. I got to see how hard Madison's fans ride for her. And that was really, really cool to see. People were making me like bracelets and giving me gifts and writing me notes. And it was just really awesome. It was my first time ever taking a tour bus on tour.
Yep.
So that was cool. That tour was just like baby's first tour for me. So everything about it was really awesome. And then Bishop tour was also amazing. I think the main thing I took away from Bishop tour was, other than being like super in awe of her, she's such an incredible singer. It's actually so unreal. I loved hearing her sing every night. But I think it was really cool to get to play both of those tours and play for such super different demographics. Like Madison's tour and Bishop's tour had completely different audiences. I doubt there was barely any crossover at all in audience. And it was just interesting to get to like see how, different types of crowds are, how they react, what they like, what they don't like. For example, like I have a song called Dollface, and on Madison tour, I played Dollface every night, and people fucking loved it. Like there was a chant, and everyone knew it, and it was such a hit. I played Dollface the first night of Bishop tour. Crickets. We took it out of the set list immediately. We were like, this is not the crowd for that. So it's cool. You just kind of get to like test the waters and see different people, different age groups, and see what people like.
Very cool. Okay, so that's interesting. So speaking to collaborations in that case, if you could collaborate with anyone right now, who would it be and why?
I mean, I'd love to collaborate with Madison and Bishop. They're both great artists, so I'll
Mhm.
definitely include them in there since we're talking about them. Love both of their music also. Like they just make bops. But I think top collaboration artists I would love to work with. I love Lana Del Rey. Like that would
Yeah.
be, if like a fairy godmother came down and was like, you can collab with anyone you want on earth, I would literally be like, Lana, please. I also love Ariana Grande. She's my vocal queen, so maybe her as well.
Okay, very cool. Is there anyone in the I wonder too, in the alternative space, it could be anybody really that you would also be interested in collaborating with? I wonder because you said Deftones, but I think that's very fair. I know Deftones has had, many moments over the years, but like I'm just curious if there's anybody else you'd like to see that maybe people would find surprising.
I mean, I would love to collaborate or open on tour for Deftones.
Yeah.
Probably them. Like, I think Deftones is my number one, or maybe, yeah, definitely Deftones.
I could see it. No, I know Chino, for example, he's done tons of collaborations over the years, just him. So I could totally see that in the future.
Wow, that would be, let's manifest that.
Yes,
I'll
definitely.
die.
I would love to see that.
That would be so cool.
So this is also a good time, I think, to speak to younger creatives because we've talked a lot about your emotional journey, your artistic journey. Given this journey of navigating, I would say I call it your independence and creative control. What advice would you offer younger creatives, kind of any creative field, striving to stay authentic to your voice or to their voice rather? What advice could you give them?
I think the best advice I can give is, in any artistic field, there's going to be a lot of voices, a lot of noise, a lot of people telling you what they think is best. And,
Mhm.
when you're young and you're talented and you're an artist, you don't really necessarily have a good sense of like the industry you might be in. And the best thing you can do is trust your gut. Go with your gut feeling. If your gut is telling you something about someone, there's definitely a reason for that. And while other people's opinions are important, and it's also very important to have a trusted, few people that you can get honest opinions from so that you're not just surrounding yourself with yes men or, just going off your own ideas all the time. But at the end of the day, you have to put your own opinions first creatively. You're an artist because you know what decisions to make with your art. That's what makes you the artist. So I think that's my best advice. Just stay really true to yourself and don't let anybody's opinion overshadow your own. Take opinions, but always put what you know is true to yourself first.
I think that's it. Yeah, that's definitely the message right there. Excellent. So heading into kind of the closing of this conversation, I have a few kind of rapid fire questions for you just on a personal level that I think people will find interesting. Do you have a number one, what's your favorite track from Pretty Evil if you had to choose just one? I know it's difficult.
It switches all the time, but right now I'm going to say Dead Girl Dreaming.
Okay. Do you have a favorite comfort food on tour?
Oh my God, yes. And it's not a food, but it's Diet Dr. Pepper. It's every rider I've ever had, and it will forever stay. I love Diet Dr. Pepper.
Song currently on repeat.
Ooh, let me just tell you, I can't think of things off the top of my head, so I'm going to Spotify. I've had Nymph by Brooke Candy on repeat,
Okay.
October by Lil Peep, Run Your Mouth by the Marias, Risk by Deftones. Those are my most played for right now.
Dope. Okay. Very cool. And finally, what's your dream tour destination?
Dream tour destination, Italy. Anywhere in Italy, I'll take it.
It's a good excuse to have excellent food too. Beautiful but excellent
Exactly.
food, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this really brings us to the end of the interview, and I have to ask you, what are your upcoming projects, shows, anything that anybody should check out? Should they be looking forward to?
Well, they can look forward to the Pretty Evil tour. It's coming in August. It's running from July 1st through August 24th. It's going to
Okay.
be a summer tour, and they can look out for a lot of new music this year. The album is not the last music of the year I'll be dropping, so yeah, there will be a lot more surprises as the year goes on.
Okay, excellent. Well, Elise, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm looking forward to it as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was awesome.
Of course.